fans are going to be up for it. The atmosphere is going to be incredible. And this is a big game for them.
When we felt as though the title had officially gone, a lot of us had the mindset of, you know what, it may well have, but let's try and finish with 90 points. Worry about this season, and worry about next season the minute this season finishes.
Hi and welcome along to AFTV. We are here to preview the game, Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal. I'm joined by Sharoy today. Great to have you, mate. For all you thinking and asking, where's James? As we know, this is transfer season. You know, his contract was running out, so he's gone on a free. You know what I mean? No, I'm only joking. James is all right. He's actually speaking at a university today.
Really?
Yeah. He's speaking at a university, so big up to James, man. So, but Sharoy, you're here with me, mate. Yeah, you know what? We was both just standing there. We're at the Emirates, and we're both kind of in a bit of a reflective mood about the season because this is, you know, our penultimate game of the season, last away game of the season as well. We've been brilliant away from home this season. We've been, on the whole, brilliant at home this season, but we ain't going to win nothing. It's just, I was just gutted. I'm still gutted about it, Sharoy.
I'm finding it difficult because the last time I was here, I was doing a fan cam with you just over here, and it was after the Leeds game. We'd put 4 past Palace, we'd put 4 past Leeds. I think Liverpool was the next game. And I was looking at that table saying, not only can we, I think we should. And I just didn't see that level of implosion coming. But what I certainly don't want is for the players to feel as though this game's for nothing.
Well, last week, Brighton here, and I can tell you coming to the game, a lot of the fans were very flat after Manchester City had beaten Everton, and it sort of, you know, went through to the players as well. And that was a pretty humbling defeat, 3-0 at home to Brighton. And this weekend now, a chance to bounce back because I think, you know, you could see it on the faces of the players. You could see it on the face of Mikel Arteta. He was really, really disappointed with that performance against Brighton, especially coming off of the back of a brilliant performance away from home against Newcastle. And we don't really want the season to just fizzle out. Try and get as many points as possible and finish the season on a high and look forward again to next year.
Yeah, correct. I mean, it's an age-old saying in football that you're only as good as your last game. So notwithstanding everything we've said about form, our last game was Brighton. And that, for me, was our worst performance at home of the season. And you can look at the amount of points that we amassed throughout the season. And I understand a lot of fans saying, yes, but that felt as though it was for something, all right? When we felt as though the title had officially gone, a lot of us had the mindset of, you know what, it may well have, but let's try and finish with 90 points. That would be a very respectable points total. And we could then look at this, exactly, and we could say we went toe-to-toe with Man City and we took it to the last game. We haven't been able to do that. But I do not want that mentality to shift. I'm now sitting here thinking, okay, you can't finish with 90 points, but I want to finish with 87 points. It would leave a real sour taste in the mouth if we were not to win here and we were going into the last home game at this stadium against Wolves, knowing that in our last 8 games or whatever, we'd only managed to win 2.
Yeah. It's been a big drop-off. A game against Nottingham Forest this weekend, when we played them here at the Emirates, it was light work, you know. We put 5 past them, 5-0, really, really easy win. I remember on the day Reece Nelson got a couple.
Yep.
But now going away to Nottingham Forest, this is going to be a difficult game. We've played Forest twice at their stadium since they've sort of, you know, re-emerged as a force. Both of those in the FA Cup, but we've lost both of them. And, you know, I can tell you, as you know, going there is always a great atmosphere at that stadium. They really get behind their team, and they've got a lot to fight for. You know what I mean? They're relegation threatened. It's not like us where there's not really, apart from pride and getting points, everything is on the line for Nottingham Forest in this game.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, looking at where they sit in the table, I think they sit 16th and they're by no means safe. But they also know that, one, this is their last home game of the season. They go to Palace away after that, and they're going to want to make use of that home advantage. And sadly, I think they might be looking at this saying, this could be a decent time to play Arsenal with not much on the line aside from pride. Nottingham Forest have absolutely everything on the line. They have Premier League survival on the line.
Well, if they win this game, I think they're safe.
Even if they get a point, I think they wouldn't be safe, but they'd be a lot more comfortable than they are now. So best believe they are going to want that point and fight for their lives to get that point, right? And I mean, looking at their last set of results, if I'm not mistaken, they beat Brighton, they put 3 past them, they took a point off Chelsea, and I think they had a 3-2 against Liverpool that could have gone either way. Or maybe it was a 4-3. I can't remember exactly what the score was, but I remember it being a very, very close game. And anyone that thinks that Arsenal's response means that Nottingham Forest are going to automatically roll over. I think they're sadly mistaken. You're looking at their attacking threat particularly, and I think that's a problem given our recent defensive frailty. They've got Morgan Gibbs-White, who has been absolutely incredible. I mean, going back to
season.
Exactly, going back to the points that they took off City, it was Morgan Gibbs-White with an incredible assist, flashing the ball across the 6-yard box, and that gets put away. And people talk a lot about AFTV's Taiwo. Well, Nottingham Forest have their own Taiwo.
They've got their own Taiwo.
They've got their own Taiwo.
Yeah, and he's a handful. And I'll tell you what, he's been injured for quite a bit of the season, but he's back now, and he's the one, really spearheading their attack. Like you said, they got a decent point last week at Chelsea. Could have won it.
Yeah.
And so they're in a good place as a team at the moment, but they are still got the threat of relegation hanging over them. And they will want to try and see if they can win this game. And make no doubt, their fans are going to be up for it. The atmosphere is going to be incredible. And this is a big game for them. Now, how do Arsenal approach this game? You know what I mean? Do they rest players for this game? Do they say to themselves, you know what? Season's done. Let's give a chance to some of the players that haven't featured a lot this season or have featured sparingly this season. Or do they go with the strongest possible team to try and get a positive result? I mean, what would you be thinking of? What would you do if you was in Mikel Arteta's shoes?
There are differing schools of thought on this, all right? And me personally, I'm looking at the fact that we will not have Martinelli, we will not have Zinchenko,
yeah, they're both out
we will not have Saliba, and we're talking about an off-form Partey who doesn't start. Now, just in those 4 players alone, you're talking about almost half of your outfield. If you then seek to rotate even further, you're, in my opinion, risking a loss at Nottingham Forest, all right? And going back to what I said at the start of this video, I desperately do not want this season to peter out.
And by the way, if we lost that game, that would automatically hand Man City the title without them even having to play.
Correct.
Which, again, would be, poor on our part.
But also looking at when people talk about putting in players in positions where they haven't necessarily played or they haven't had many minutes, I often hear them talking about players like maybe Reece Nelson, players like Emile Smith-Rowe. There are question marks over whether those players are even going to be here next year. So there's not a guaranteed benefit in giving them the minutes because they may not even be contributing to what we hope is another title charge next year, right? So I actually think what you have to do is go strong in this game. I would keep Trossard in for Martinelli. I know that there's been a lot of talk about Saka needing a break. Look, I wouldn't be...
He's going to get a break in the next couple of weeks.
Exactly. I wouldn't be adversely opposed to a player like Reece Nelson starting, but that goes exactly back to what I just said. Reece Nelson may not be here next year. All right, I really do think we have to go for the 3 points to stop the season ending in what I would say is a catastrophic manner.
Personally, I would start Reece Nelson. I may leave Trossard out for this game.
Do you think Reece is going to stay?
Well, I mean, it might be a way to persuade him to stay because they are, they're definitely trying to get him to stay. There was talk that, this week that, they're offering him a new contract. They want him to stay.
Yeah.
Maybe a way of saying to him, listen, Reece, we think you're important, is by making him start in this game. Now, when he came on the other day, and this is another thing with me, it's about rewarding performances as well. I know he wasn't on for long the other day, but when he came on in that game, he looked electric.
Correct.
He was the only player really playing like how I thought the whole team should have been playing. And I'd like to reward that. So if I was the manager, I'd be looking at it and saying, well, Trossard didn't have a great game, even though he's done brilliantly for us this season. We know that Martinelli's out. I'll start with Reece Nelson on that left-hand side. I'll put Saka on the right-hand side and start with Reece Nelson on that side, on the left-hand side. Because I just would like to reward that. And it could have the other effect, as I said, of letting him think to himself, well, you know what? I'm starting to feel important in this team. I want to stay here.
But when okay, Reece aside, because I do understand the logic about perhaps trying to retain him, but when you talk about perhaps trying other things and rotating, bearing in mind what I said about a few players being out, what other positions do you think we can rotate without really jeopardising the prospects of succeeding away at Nottingham Forest?
Yeah, well, I guess there's nobody else. I mean, Fabio Vieira, maybe he hasn't really had much time. Emile Smith-Rowe, you could maybe put him for a Xhaka, but I hear what you're saying. There's already a lot of players missing, so it starts to make it look like you've made mega changes. But I'm not adverse against a couple of changes. To me, I am with you. I want to finish this season very, very strongly. But also, you know what I mean, I want some of these other players to step in and show us what they can do, you know what I mean? And this will be a tough game. But when are we going to see these players play? You know what I mean? You know, some of them, I mean, Smith Rowe, again, if he's getting doubts about staying, maybe this is a game that kind of persuades him to stay. I mean, you could sort of turn around your argument and say, you know, we're hearing this week that Xhaka looks like he's definitely going to go at the end of the season. He hasn't been offered a new contract beyond his one that's have here. So shouldn't we then maybe be looking at someone else in his position? What do you look on it in that view?
I know. I've had this debate with so many fans, but I just feel like worry about this season, and worry about next season the minute this season finishes. You know, when we're talking about whether players can prove themselves, whether they'll be here next year, whether they should start next year, I think ultimately that's what pre-season is for. I think now, given that in our last 7 games we've dropped points in 5, we cannot afford to end this season in the mid to early 80s in a points tally, purely because that is not reflective of how good we've been. And this season will be even more easily forgotten if we're not pushing towards those 90 points. And that, for me, I really do not want that.
And we've been brilliant on the road.
Correct.
And that's the thing. And that performance last time on the road against Newcastle was brilliant.
Oh, incredible.
You know? So I want to see a performance with that same passion this week against Nottingham Forest. I don't care the fact that we're not going to win the league. And I want us to make City have to win the league and not hand them the league after, you know, we were so far in front. I think it'd be poor on our part.
Oh, it'd be heartbreaking. It'd be heartbreaking. I mean, I had visions of them having to win on the last day, as I was saying. So the notion that they now wouldn't even have to win a game to win the Premier League trophy that we fought so hard to try and win, it would be devastating.
Yeah, it would be. If you look at Nottingham Forest's team, then who is the player you look at and say, that's the danger man, that's the player that we've got to look after more than any other player, or we're going to be in big trouble?
To identify that player, I'm not just looking at Forest's threats, I'm looking at our weaknesses. I think in recent weeks, we've actually been pretty poor defensively in the air. And that was exemplified by the sort of free header that Brighton had in the 6-yard box. And I think Isak even had a free header at Newcastle in the 6-yard box, but Rambo managed to pull out a fantastic save. And to that end, I'm looking at Taiwo Awoniyi. I think that guy can cause us endless trouble, not just from set pieces, but any ball that's put into the box. And there's been a lot of talk about the amount of goals that Arsenal have conceded at the far post this year, and those are really adding up.
Yep.
And he's the kind of guy that can give you a real problem in that position. I understand that many people would perhaps say Gibbs White because of his dynamism, but for me, it's Taiwo Awoniyi. How about you?
Yep. I think you've got to look at Johnson as well.
Yeah.
You know, he's very, very quick. You know what I mean? After what I saw, you know, Ben White go through last week,
yeah.
you know, they'll definitely be targeting that, you know. Ben White looked leggy last week.
Wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one.
He wasn't the only one, but he looked leggy in a position you can't be leggy in, right? And so I think, you know, Brennan Johnson, we've got to be very, very careful of him. He's quick. He gets in behind. We play a very high line. So I'd say that's the player that we're definitely going to have to watch. Who do you think they're going to have to watch out from the most from us?
I think Jesus. I think Jesus has actually looked quite bright in the last few games. I was very, very surprised when he came off against Brighton. I thought in terms of our front three, he was the one offering the most. And taking him off instead of Saka perhaps for me was a bit mind-boggling, but hey, I'm not the Arsenal manager, what do I know, right? But I think this is going to be one of those games where Gabriel Jesus, look, he is a winner. He came from that Manchester City dressing room. And as much as Arsenal fans are hurting and as much as the Arsenal players are hurting, players like Jesus really did want to spearhead us to a title. And he will not have liked seeing us go out the way we did. And I think he's going to have the bit between his teeth, and that Forest defence will hopefully be in for a real tough time. Yeah,
I think Martin Odegaard's going to be a big player for us in this game. He's been brilliant away from home in particular. You know what I mean? He orchestrates things. He leads the press. I think that this is going to be a game which he could have a lot of influence on. So Odegaard's my player that they're going to have to definitely watch out for. And finally, getting to the crux of it, your prediction for the game.
You go first. Go on.
It's such a hard game to predict. It's all going to be about Arsenal's mindset.
And it also depends on the lineup.
It depends on the lineup. It depends on Arsenal's mindset. If they are, listen, they play that game like that against Newcastle, we win it about 3-1. We play like how we did last week against Brighton. We could actually lose that game because they've got so much to play for. This is like, I know they've got 2 games left, but it's like a do or die situation for them. They're going to want to get it done at home. It's almost like nothing to lose game for them in a way, in that they've got another crack at it if they don't, you know, unlike some of the other teams that are below them, they'll have another crack at it the week after. But if they can get it done at home with their fans, with that great atmosphere they've got there, they'll view it that way. So I think if the mindset's wrong, I don't think we lose. I think it could be a draw. But I think if we go there and we approach that game, and I think Arteta will be pushing them to approach the game that way, because his face looked like thunder last week after that Brighton game. I'm going for a 3-1 Arsenal win.
Even if we rotate the way that you suggested?
Well, my rotation now, after what you said, I was going to rotate a bit more in, but I'm only going with Reece Nelson in my rotation.
Okay.
And Reece Nelson did score 2 against them, in the reverse fixture. You know what I mean? So, again, that's another reason I feel to start him.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the dynamics of that game and this game differ so much, because at that point, you know, we were really steaming ahead. At that point, people were talking about top 4, but I think the title was on the minds of the players, and Nottingham Forest didn't quite realise that they were 2 games away from being relegated. So the dynamics of that game are quite different. I don't think we'll rotate very heavily. I think if there is rotation, as you say, it will only be Reece Nelson. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, and I'm sure the comments are going to roast me for this, because this is the first time that I've not predicted an Arsenal win since I've been on the channel. But given that Nottingham Forest are fighting for a hell of a lot, and I think, sadly, the wind is out of our sails a little bit, I think this ends in a draw. I'm going 1-1.
Okay, 1-1, Troy's going. What are you guys going? We'd love to hear from you. Also, what I want to hear from you guys is, what would you do with the lineup? Would you make changes? Would you bring in a Emile Smith-Rowe? Would you bring in a Fabio Vieira? Is it time for Reece Nelson to start? Would you leave out some more established players? Would you leave Xhaka out, seeing as that he could be leaving at the end of the season? Would you leave out Bukayo Saka? A lot of people have been saying he's looking a bit tired. Maybe Ben White, does he come out and you bring one of the youngsters at the back? I don't know. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Let us know.
And just on that, most importantly, would you leave out James permanently and bring me in as a full-time transfer?
Yeah, we want to hear that one as well. Right, so let us know. He's going to kill you.
No, it had to be done. It had to be done. I love you, James. I'm playing.
Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget we're going to be at the game. So we'll be speaking to fans at the game at the City Ground. So make sure you check us out. And also don't forget, on Tuesday, the 23rd of May, the Invincible podcast is going to be live with an audience. That's going to be taking place at the Islington Assembly Hall. If you haven't got tickets for it yet, click the link in the description and you can get your tickets now. Looking forward to meeting you guys on the night. We're also going to be announcing on that night our player of the season, Arsenal's player of the season. So make sure you get down there. Troy, thanks. See you guys on the next one. Shop for AFTV merch at shop.aftv.co.uk. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, and Twitch. We've got content for every platform, so check it out.